Hello, hello. I'm really excited today to see my lovely friend, Julie Nelson. So Julie and I have been friends for many, many years, and we've had kind of a space where we haven't spoken that much. And so I feel like I'm back in with the girls to be talking with her. And wait till you see her background. It looks so pretty. But Julie is very interested in the same way as I am in the goddess archetypes. And she's a natural perfumer. And we're going to talk a bit about goddess archetypes. And particularly today, I think, Venus. Julie, say hello and tell them why you're interested in Venus right now.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here all the way over in Australia. So Venus is, many people will know because there's been a real buzz about this, but Venus is in retrograde and she just had a Venus cazimi. And what that means is on Sunday in the Southern Hemisphere, she was kissing the sun. And what happens is that she went behind the sun. So she's transforming from being the evening star into the morning star. So I'm going to really miss her beautiful brightness at night. And Venus is a part of our astrological birth chart. So everybody has her in their astrology chart. And she represents love, beauty, abundance, prosperity, birthing of ideas / fertility. And in Hindu religion, she was known as the prostitute. And if I may share about this, because some people go, ooh, but I want to put a bit of light onto that because, of course, archetypally, the prostitute is known as being the woman or man that gives themselves away. They give their power away. But I'm going to invite you to flip that, where it is coming from an empowered way. And I say that because a woman from the 15th, 16th century inspired me to create a perfume called Courtesan. And her name is Veronica Franco, and she was the most famous courtesan in the world then, I think, ever, really. And she was sought after by the very wealthy, the rich. And she had so much power. And back then, courtesans were, she was a courtesan in Venice. She was also a poet, and she was accused of being a witch, but got off the trials. So back then, a courtesan was a very powerful woman. She was the only woman that was allowed to read, write, sing, dance, and play music. And she was allowed to walk into a man's library because they were only for men. So I'm going to invite you to think of the prostitute, coming back to Venus, as empowerment. It's a choice. And it is something that we can tap into with that love, beauty, abundance, prosperity, and the birthing of ideas or fertility that Venus holds. And of course, there are some essential oils that she rules. And she also is the ruler of Libra and Venus, the second house and the seventh house. And also, wherever she is sitting in your birth chart, you can see where she's going to play out.
Can I just interrupt you? So, rule, you made a misspeak and it'll confuse people. So, ruler of the second house, Libra and Taurus, not Libra and Venus, correct?
Oh, yes, my apologies. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes,
No, I didn't want to pull you up, but I'm sure people will be like, what about Taurus? So,
yeah, Taurus, Libra, and Taurus. So Taurus is second house, Libra, seventh house. However, she may be sitting somewhere different in your birth chart with a different planet or sign, I should say, a sign. And at the moment, she's sitting in Leo, transiting, and she is in retrograde. And so what retrograde means, the simplest way that I could describe it is reflection, inner reflection, reignite, realign, recalibrate, reassess. And she goes what's called station direct on the 3rd of September. So that means she'll be going back into her normal transit of going forward. And so this is actually a really powerful time to tap into the archetypal qualities of Venus, or her counterpart, Aphrodite. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, well, let me show 1 second.
Oh!
So I ran out. She said, I want to talk about Venus. I said, right, I've got it. So for my book launch at the end of September, we are having 2 different types of party, an online party and one actually here in Ludlow from my friends and I. So I've been collecting some beautiful statues to go on the table. We got some lovely beautiful Aphrodites, and see, this one needs flowers, look, but I love the way that she's always depicted with not enough clothes on, and
wow, so she's a very sensual goddess.
She's beautiful, isn't she? There's a connection, did you know, to the Melissa with Aphrodite. So there's lots of different types of Melissa, and usually when we talk about them, we say that the priestess is the ancient goddess Demeter. But in Sicily, at Eryx, Aphrodite's priestesses were also called Melissa, and she was worshipped with honeycomb, which was her fetish. And these priestesses were courtesans, exactly the same as you say. They were called the hierodula, the gerodula, and the sailors, although I like to say the seamen because it really makes me laugh. The sailors climbed up this great big hillside, 1,700 feet, to have sexual rights with the priestesses. So I love the fact, and it's almost like a playing out of the big flight. You know, she's the queen bee, and all this seaman comes up to meet her. You know, just as it does in the bee myth. You know,
yes,
seaman comes up to meet her, and she collects it all, because the queen bee will only have maybe 1, 2, or 3 flights, just as long as she can collect as much semen as she can, and then she will go down into the darkness of the hive, and she will be the servant of the hive. And so I love this kind of parallel, that they decided that these women, these courtesans, were the providers of the whole of the community. You know, it was their sacred sex that really furnished the polis, which is the city-state, with its sexual power. And of course, as you say, beauty and all of that dancing and the poetry and all of the muses, beautiful.
I love that. Excuse me, that's fantastic. And I didn't even think about that. That just came in naturally, and how beautifully it all weaves together with what you're doing as well. So with we can talk, well, then Melissa would be a beautiful oil that could be used with Venus. And the other 2, I mean, there are quite a few, but the 2 main ones that I work with is Rose, of course, ruled by Venus, and Rose is, of course, the highest vibrational plant there is in the world, and it represents love, truth, balance, excuse me, abundance, prosperity. And I also think of it as being the queen archetype, and she's being in receiving. So when I'm working with clients, that's how I always talk about Rose. She is the queen archetype, and instead of giving, she's actually in the place of receiving. And then, of course, there is geranium, and she's a very Libran oil. And I know some people put her to being very earth. for me, geranium is very much an air oil, but she's all about balance, justice, harmony, beauty, with that Libran essence of being, and then being ruled by Venus. So if we thought about it, my apologies for coughing, putting Melissa, rose, and geranium together would actually be a really beautiful scent. And I would probably bring in something like just a hint of oud or vetiver.
Oh, beautiful, yeah. Or maybe myrrh.
Oh, myrrh, of course.
Lovely,
Yes,
very divine feminine, isn't it? I tell you the oil I love to use if I'm kind of trying to summon the courtesan, which sort of two really that people don't really speak of very often because they're expensive, but tuberose
yes.
and tonka bean. I absolutely
Mm.
love the sensuality of both of those. I mean, they're off the chart expensive, aren't they?
Of
Inherited
course.
inherited in the box somewhat from me. I would never pay that amount of money. But in terms of being able to like manifest that beautiful glowing, as you say, walking into a room, into a library where no other women are allowed to walk, and owning it. Both of those oils have that kind of depth of confidence and otherworldness, I think.
And two others, because carnation is also associated to Venus, which I just adore. And when you think about the plant, when I was growing up, my mum loved carnations, and they weren't like the little dianthus that you see mostly today. These were big plants, with their gray, silver, spiky leaves, and they were tall and highly fragrant. So
Really?
yes, yes. And the flowers would be about that big, and stems like this, and they just stood up tall in the garden with their fragrance. And so that's, carnation in that beautiful, empowered Venusian essence, and she is related to Venus. And the other one for me personally, and we've talked about this, is champaka.
Oh, love it.
That oil, I even find it difficult to conjure the words that she actually makes me feel, because it's just out of this world. I feel like I'm in another realm. So definitely champaka is that courtesan standing out in the Venusian essence. And then there's oils like, what I call the floral goddesses, like jasmine. Although I relate her to the mermaid archetype, she's still that very sensual goddess that, you can put under the umbrella of Venus. And ylang-ylang, who is more bodacious and, free and very sexy and doesn't give a, what. And she just goes on, and it's just like, yeah, there's lots we could bring under the umbrella of Venus, but specific
I got
one.
a wee story about carnation for you, about like to add to the symbology of carnations, because
Yes.
outside of the UK, probably people don't know this. So you may or may not know. I have three very clever children. One of them is literally a genius. He's a maths genius. So he went to Oxford, did his maths degree and masters at Oxford. And there's a tradition with carnations at Oxford. So, and it is those big ones that you're talking about, which, as you say, you never see them growing. But as soon as you started talking about, I was like, oh no, I know what you're talking about, like buttonhole ones,
Yeah.
aren't they? So when you go to Oxford, you have like parents and grandparents who are older, like people who are the year above and the year above them, and it's their job right the way through to look after you, and then you obviously become a parent and a grandparent, and so the traditions pass down. So when you come to do your exams, they buy you a carnation each day. And it's to represent what happened before. So in days of yore, you would obviously have your inkwell on the table, and you would have a red inkwell, and you would put your white carnation in on the first day. On the second day's exams, it would have gone pink, and on the third day, it would go all red because it sucks it up. So of course, this red carnation has this symbology of you've got through this exam, you are a learned person. And again, this is like Venus energy as well, isn't it? You know, this beauty. Well, again, the library, you know, going into the library. So what they do is first day, first exam, they buy a white one. Then the second day they buy a pink one, and then the third day they buy a red one, and they go and take it to the student before they do their exam, so they have this beautiful support around them. I think it's really Venusian, that lovely beauty.
I love
flowers.
that.
Yeah. So that happens to everybody who passes through Oxford. They all have this beautiful carnations tradition.
What a stunning ritual or tradition.
It's lovely, isn't it?
How beautiful. And especially if they're the fragrant ones, because, you know, I mean, imagine, like, I might not finish my exam because I'd have my nose in the carnation all the time. But anyway, it's just like, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to take that on board and share it with my community as well, because I love that. And it's really, excuse me, interesting, the symbology of plants and flowers and the archetypal energies, and, you know, because they're also associated to star signs, planets, archetypal energies, chakras, colors, all these different things. So it's, look, for me, they really have a realm of their own, that, like, a world of their own that we can tap into. And if we want to bring in that type of energy, for example, I always think of Sagittarius. I love Sagittarius energy. And for me, bergamot is true Sagittarius energy. And I've always had this vision with Sag, and I do with a lot of the oils. I get visions when I first met them, when I was studying. And Sag, I always see these little pixies running around playing tag in a forest and being cheeky and happy and all of this. And I see Sag as being that Sagittarius because they're forever young at heart. They're very spontaneous, ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion and optimism and awakening. So bergamot for me really suits that playful aspect of Sagittarius. And so I love, like, if I'm actually living in Sagittarius in my progress chart right now. However, to tap into that Sag energy, I can use bergamot, you know, inhale it. I just inhale it straight out of the bottle. And so we can do that with the perfumes or the single essential oils, where if we want to invoke or evoke a certain quality, we can inhale it, you know, basil the warrior woman, or black pepper, you know, lavender the nurturer and the mother archetype. So it's tapping into different goddesses or archetypal energies. All we have to do is inhale it and have that intention, and we're there. It can take practice for some people, but
what fascinates me, of course, we have the magical thing of, right, you think about what you want to become that way, but also then when you look at it under a microscope, we are kind of understanding what the scientists don't yet understand, that what it's doing is touching a certain receptor in the brain that says, let's do this, let's go to sleep, let's be flirty, let's switch down pain, you know, so that the oil goes to that place and touches that particular receptor. And probably in our lifetime we'll maybe see elucidations of maybe 5 of those, but over time it will become more and more clear to people. But it's always been there because, of course, when you inhale it, it is how it makes you feel, because you don't need to know that your body's doing it. Your body's doing it. I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a bit of the science or anatomy of it is the molecules are received by certain receptor cells and become electrical impulses and hit our limbic brain, and within the limbic brain there's the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is like the control center of hormonal or some hormonal production and release, feelings such as sexual feelings and anger, digestive activity, body temperature, and so on and so on. So that, like, when we inhale a scent, imagine like it's not it's affecting our whole being, and our sense of smell is our strongest scent. When I first studied aromatherapy, it was believed that the human nose, not at one time, could detect up to something like 10,000 different aromas, or was it 10 million? Anyway, now it's trillions.
Yeah, and they reckon at any given time a person can recognize 3 million. I mean, that's astonishing, isn't it?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we could go further than that, because as you quite rightly say, it activates electrical impulses, but between those, like, electrical nerves, there's like a gap that needs chemicals to go across. It also does that. And so those chemicals are things like serotonin, the mood modulator, dopamine, the sexual drive. What's interesting is inhaling essential oils has massive amount of research now about how it affects oxytocin and estrogen. So, particularly, forgive me for putting you in the age group of myself, but for postmenopausal women that have passed through that gate into wisdom, as the ancients would say, but have left all that estrogen behind. Leaving the estrogen behind can be really quite problematic for some women. Whereas, and funnily enough, how strange that these floral oils that we're talking about, they're the ones that bring the estrogen back, And so I think there was one of my favourite clinical trials, because I am that square, is one where they were ascertaining oxytocin, but the route they went was so clever. So one of the key problems women have after they go through pregnancy is their bones through menopause is their bones become brittle. And that is because bone density relies on lots of different things, but in particular oxytocin. So if oxytocin drops, then these women are very vulnerable to broken bones, crumbling hips, all that stuff. So this team said, well, if we could improve levels of oxytocin, can we improve bone density? Long story short, they proved yes, they could. So then some genius on that team went, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we see if we can use essential oils to make the oxytocin go better? And if we can, then that should improve bone density. So they tested 20 different essential oils, inhaling them for 5 minutes twice a day over a month. And lo and behold, all of them improved oxytocin. So
that means that I'm going to have really strong bone density.
Well, we're the warriors, lady. Exactly. You know what? I've pretty much given up using essential oils topically. I have, because there's so many benefits from your oxytocin, but to your mood, to your blood pressure, to even helping against obesity. All of those things are helped by inhalation, which is astonishing.
I know.
What your brain must be able to do is incredible.
Yes, they've still got so much to learn, even only about our olfactory. And the thing is, that's why for me, many years ago, I turned to perfumery, because I seemed to attract a lot of women that were needing support emotionally and strengthening their nervous system and reducing anxiety, and especially in our days today, I mean, God, there's so much stress and uncertainty and anxiety in people around the world, and depression. And so essential oils for me are the go-to. They are my go-to. They are the people that I work with, their go-to. And it is as simple as inhaling. It's so powerful. I tend to use essential oils more now with topical applications, more for, wounds and skin conditions and pain, but definitely perfumery, natural botanical perfumery we're talking about, combining essential oils. You can use them on their own, but when you put specific ones together, you can potentize the actions of them or the qualities of them. And I always talk about it as being the power and pleasure of natural perfumery, because they help us to feel amazing. I mean, if you think about your favorite scent without even smelling it, you immediately have a response, an emotional and physical response. So imagine when you're actually smelling it and being aware of how you actually respond. Like, I've had shoulders drop, smile comes on my face. I feel like I'm lighting up, and this is what happens with clients as well. And it's pleasurable, it's easy, and safe. Of course, you always have to consider contraindications. But dry inhalations or spraying a bit of perfume or anointing a drop of a perfume is very, very safe. But I always do say, be mindful of the contraindications. But to receive pleasure while we're healing, we don't get that with pharmaceuticals.
No, and I think also we should really comment on the Venusian aspect of healing, because I'm one of these women that I go through life and I'm just like, right, I'll do some writing, I'll clean the kitchen, I'll do the washing, I'll take the dog a walk, I'll make the tea, I'll sit down, I'll go in the bath, I'll go to bed. Where was I in that, And and there's a lot of women that healing comes through realizing actually you have a window in this, and being able to just sit down with your oil and go, gosh, this is just for me, which is so much of a Venusian thing, isn't it? You are allowed to bloom, the floral aspect. And even if you're treating somebody for wounds or particularly aches and pains or those kind of things, inhaling really increases levels of GABA, which is the calming calming neurotransmitter. Well, pain transmission relies on you having enough GABA. So you can put on as many oils as you like with lavender and juniper and stuff, but it will definitely be better if you invest something in this Venusian aspect of, I'm thinking about me for a change.
Yes, like doing beauty magic. And when I talk about beauty, I'm not talking about, what we see on the media. I'm, as you said, sitting down, relaxing, giving yourself it, even if you think because we've been trained to believe we're time poor, and we're not. It's easier for me. My daughter's growing up. She's an adult woman. I live on my own. So I do know that for me, and I work from home, that it can be easier for me to sit down and do things, and I've got essential oils, I've got perfumes, I've got, all of that at within reach for myself. And one of my favorite times to do it is when I'm going to bed. I love anointing myself with perfume when I go to bed. I use my sprays and that through the day. And sometimes just rubbing it into the ends of my hair because it stays there all day. And other people get pleasure from that as well. However, coming back to sitting down, just creating sacred space for yourself, just even for 2 minutes. And in that 2 minutes, you can anoint or spray your perfume. Breathe it in. Speak your intention. I always recommend you have an intention, whether it be, I am beautiful, I am sexy, I am sensual, I am confident, whatever you want to work with. To me, that's beauty magic, Venusian magic. And then you inhale it again, whether it's on your wrist or in the bottle, and it just anchors it in. And spending a few moments doing that, and you can repeat it as often as you like, it's very powerful. It's potent medicine for our health and well-being on all levels.
And I think it's important to perhaps explain to people who don't understand astrology very well, in Venus retrograde, although there are really positive aspects to Venus retrograde that Julie talked about at the beginning, this is when you don't feel pretty.
Yeah.
When you don't feel rich.
Yeah. So all the more to tap into those beautiful essential oils. And if it's not one we've mentioned, tap into one that you, or choose one that you feel aligned to, that makes your heart sing. Because yes, Venus retrograde can dim the light, dim our inner light. We might not feel beautiful. We might be struggling in relationships, because she is all about relationships with ourselves and with other people. So yes to her going forward in, and it's not that she's actually going backwards. She's just taking a wider berth around the sun. But when she goes forward, really tap into that. Can I share a story? It'll only be a minute. All right, because I set up a crystal grid for the Venus Cazimi on Sunday night, and I had a candle that I've had forever, and I've just always loved it, but I've never found the right time to light it. I mean, it's traveled with me. It's a round red candle that's got roses, like it's been in a mold, so it looks like it's got roses. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to light this candle. I've probably had it for about 10 years, always packed away. And it's been sitting on my table. And I thought, with this Venus Cazimi kissing the sun and moving behind the sun, where she disappears for a while, is I'm going to tap into this, because this is a very powerful energy. She's in transformation. And yes, transformation can be challenging. And I always try to work with the positive. So if you find that there is that unhelpful, you don't feel great about yourself, your relationship is going to shit, whatever it is, then think about all the lushness of Venus to tap into. You've got to acknowledge your feelings. It's really important, and acknowledge that now is not a great time, and accept that, but know that we can move through it. So what I did was I lit this candle at 9:15 p.m. Sydney time, Southern Hemisphere, which is the exact time that Venus was kissing the sun. Such a cute thing. And then the next morning, I had an appointment to go to. So before I did, I was standing at my bench and I went, come on, Venus, I need some money, because I want to get some of my artwork framed to put in an exhibition. And then I just let it go. I visualized a green candle burning down, clicked my fingers, boom, boom, boom. And then I actually forgot about it and went off. And when I came home, there was a message on Facebook Marketplace. I've had these dining chairs. They were the only piece of furniture I saved from our big floods. The reason I wanted to save them was because they cost a fortune, and they had hardly been used, and managed to fit them in the ute with the little bit of stuff that I got when I left from the floods. And anyway, they've been sitting on Marketplace for nearly 6 months, and people trying to get me down, and can I just give you $150? I mean, I don't think so. That cost me $800, and I got them on sale. So anyway, and I've had scammers. Anyway, I got home, this guy has messaged me and said, I live in Woodford, 15 minutes away. I'll come and get them now. I'll give you such and such amount. Will you take that? And I went, you know what? I'd really appreciate it if you would give me an extra $50, because I have lost so much and I'm downsizing because I moved from a 3-bedroom house into this tiny little cottage. And I said, however, if you're struggling, just give me what you can. Anyway, he gave me the 350. He's so happy with them. We've communicated. And just like that. And I'm thinking, thank you, Venus. Because
I love it when things like that happen. And let me guess, I bet the pictures are almost exactly $350, aren't they? I always
$330.
Is it weird? That's what we always say in our family. Like the universe gives you just enough, and I go, this is rude. You're making me scrimp and save. I want more. I want more. And it is weird how it happens, isn't it? Almost exactly the right amount of money. Yeah. I love that story. Yeah. So I've got a couple more things to share for you for your Venus knowledge, because I know that you are interested in the bees now that you've become hooked. So
and can I just share something about your book? I went into the library the other day to see if they had any books on the Melissa, the bee priestesses, and nothing. Anyway, she said, let me Google, and guess what came up? Your book.
Yes. Thank you for that story, Julie.
I loved it. I can't wait to get it.
So bees have two main ways of communicating. They communicate through fragrance, hence this association with Melissa, because their pheromone smells the same as lemon balm, and they dance. So when they come, and actually, let me tell you, even though it's unrelated, so in a hive, they deliberately leave one comb empty. So there's no brood, no honey, it's empty, so that when they dance on it, it echoes through the thing so that it can be heard better, which I just think is so amazing. And when you go to study the Greek temples, there's always there's a dance floor out front, and I'm like, empty, it's a dance. I love it. Anyway, so when they find pollen, they come in and they dance a figure of 8. It's called the waggle dance. But this figure of 8 is absolutely the most sacred thing in bee medicine. Well, also, that's what Venus does. She goes round the sun, round the moon, round the sun, round the moon. So you can really see, and I really don't understand how the ancients knew this, but they really did know it was evening star and morning star. So the divine feminine dances like a bee.
Yes.
But then, of course, then you've got the retrogrades. I'm sure you know already what the sign of retrogrades is. It's the pentacle. It's the sign of the witch.
Yes, and Venus
the sign. Yeah, that's the sign of Venus. Yeah, that's how the retrogrades move over a period of time. Yeah, fascinating, isn't it? How these symbols know so much.
It's phenomenal, and I really believe just on finishing that up. Like even last night, I was writing something about the stars, or the other night, and somebody said, "How did the ancient people know this?" And I said, why do we as humans now think that they may not have been very intelligent beings? They were far more attuned and aligned to nature because they relied on it for survival.
No, that's the thing that amazes me. How did they watch the sky so intently? And as you say, when you look at their knowledge, it was extensive. You look at Ptolemy writes extraordinary amounts of things in Almagest, 2nd century, but even like a lot of the bee stuff comes from ancient Babylonian. Well, that's like 5,500 BC.
Yeah. But they had time to study these things. They didn't have computers. They didn't work like we did. And the thing is, can you imagine, like, we see very little of the stars in the sky compared to what they would have seen.
Yeah.
And here's a tidbit of information that really upset me that I discovered when I went to a TEDx talk. This astronomer was talking every year. I don't know about for you guys, but here we lose 10%.
Yes.
Of vision of the Milky Way due to the satellites and the light that they are reflecting. And in the next year or so, they're expecting 10,000 more satellites to go up. And I'm going, and I, you know, I just found out, and I'm trying to find out if this is true, because we really need to honor our earth that we're on and look after her. So getting back to the ancients, I think they were just so much more tapped in and tuned on, because they did rely on it for survival with gardening and planting. They followed the moon and they saw the different constellations. But somebody told me the other day, and sorry, this is by the by, but just talking about constellations and the stars, that Australian government is putting in something like $3.5 billion to plant some trees on the moon. And I'm going, why would they do that? So I'm trying to find out if it's true or not. Why not plant them on Earth? Don't get their way of thinking. No. So I don't know if it's just BS or what, but it's just like, oh.
As you say, this was the work of priestess, to know about where the constellations were, to set up the rituals, to have the energy of the people completely aligned with what was happening. I think that's a lovely place to leave this. So thank you so much. I think you've frozen, Julie.
Yes.
So lovely to see you. And thank you for sharing all of that beautiful knowledge. Before you go, is there anything that you want to tell anybody about in terms of your what you do for, have you got like perfumes on offer or stuff like that?
Sure, yeah, I have on my website julienelson.com.au all my perfume collections, and I do create bespoke perfumes. And I've also got all of my Magickal stuff, and I'm starting a book club this Sunday. I don't know how it will work for most Northern Hemispherians. It will work for some, but we're going to be going through witchy books and books on goddesses and astrology and all of that. And all I ask for is a gold coin donation for that. However, that will be fun. And it's once a month on a Sunday afternoon, Southern Hemisphere time. And you can work with me with mentoring and the perfumery, because I bring everything together, the astrology, the magic, the perfumery, or you can have it all separate.
What's a gold coin donation?
Oh, of course. $1 or $2. Our $1 and $2 are part gold. So sorry, I forgot. Yes, you're on pounds and.
No, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have to rearrange my diary to be there. That sounds amazing.
I would love it, because what we could do is actually use your book, which I'm so excited about.
I would love that. Well, yes. So I should say at this point, don't forget that I have a book about Rose Goddess Medicine, if anybody is interested in really pursuing that Venus.
Yeah, actually, now I'm going to have to look at all of your book list and actually really get them.
Right. Say bye, Julie.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Stay on the line, Ju. Bye, everyone.
Bye.